Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of NFL Daily. I am your host, Harris Rubenstein. Along next to me is this very handsome fellow, is Cam Rogers, host of the Cam Rogers Show. Very happy to be with you today. Cam, we got a great show. It's time to do a little MVP power rankings. We're 2 weeks in. We can actually talk about something real this time. No more projections.
And we actually have some data to back up our points now.
Yes.
We have 2 games under our belts. So we can really kind of dial in, go through the stats, lay out a good list of power rankings.
Exactly. I think our preseason power rankings, I think, were based obviously strictly off of 2016.
Right.
I think now we're able to do a little more 2017 season stuff. So I'm excited. I think our list is pretty good. We got a couple of questionable ones, but I think we're doing okay.
You know, I think from 5 down to 10, it's like you almost want to drop them off.
It's a toss-up.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. But first things first, let's start with a little news and notes to get us rolling. So first things first, ladies and gentlemen, DeMaurice Smith, the executive director, not the president, of the NFL Players Association, was reelected as their leader by a unanimous vote, which, if I'm not going to lie, Cam, I find to be very surprising, seeing as the NFL Players Union got absolutely roasted in the most recent CBA, so much roasted, that Roger Goodell is suspending everybody that he wants.
Well, I think the one thing about Smith is that it's clear he's a fighter, and he will come to the front lines to defend his players. Meanwhile, if you juxtapose this story with the fact that Roger Goodell is being fought by Jerry Jones in terms of contract extension money and all this stuff, I guess they just had a conference call today, and Jerry Jones doesn't want more money to be put into Roger Goodell right now.
As it shouldn't.
It makes Smith look like, a golden child right now.
And also, I guess it's kind of it's the Roger Goodell argument of, like, who do you replace him with? And I guess it's kind of the same thing with DeMaurice Smith. It's like, who do you really replace him with? Like, there isn't some, like, high, like, it isn't like in the NBA where Adam Silver was sitting right there to take over the NBA. Like, there is no NFLPA protege coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, look, it's tough with this kind of thing. Like, people usually prefer the status quo. That's why, Jerry Jones isn't exactly trying to ouster Roger Goodell. He just wants to limit his money in terms of the extension. So not a lot of turnover in these kind of things. So good for Smith, and we'll see what happens going forward with more controversies that I'm sure will happen.
All right, let's move on to our next little piece of news here. This actually came from later yesterday. Mitch and Tom talked about it on NFL Daily Fantasy Edition yesterday. But the Dolphins and the Saints made a trade with this whole wacky inflatable arm flailing two-man situation that is Lawrence Timmons. The Dolphins traded for former first-round pick Stephon Anthony. Guy came from Clemson 2 years ago. Has been, for the most part, a pretty big bust. He hasn't really done anything in the NFL. He's been healthy and active for both games this year that the Saints have had. Now going to the Dolphins for a little bit of a change of scenery. And is this really anything? He got to sit next to Kiko Alonso, and Kiko Alonso will make him look good.
Why do I feel like these bizarre, weird stories always happen to the Dolphins?
Because they do. They always happen to the Dolphins.
Remember the whole bully gate with Incognito?
Yep. Chad Johnson, that whole...
For crying out loud. What is going on with the Dolphins organization?
That's just what... if you watch Ballers, they kind of present to you that, like, this is just stuff that happens in Miami. So I'm going to kind of go along with that. But I mentioned to you this before the show about Lawrence Timmons and this whole thing. There were rumors and hints that stuff like this happened while he was in Pittsburgh. But since he had such a great relationship with the franchise and with Tomlin, that they kind of swept it under the rug. But he's a peculiar dude. So when I heard about this, I was surprised. But once I started reading more into it, it's kind of just how he rolls.
I know Tomlin is more of a player's guy than Adam Gase is. There's no doubt about that. So it doesn't shock me that Timmons got away with this kind of stuff. But we don't know a lot on Timmons' end, right?
Mm-hmm.
The situation is very up in the air. I guess he saw a doctor about something, so we don't know what his personal life is like right now.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps this is totally different from the situations in the past when he was with Pittsburgh. So we'll see how he kind of bounces back from this, because being suspended indefinitely for something that Adam Gase does not like, being absent, is a pretty big deal.
Very true. All right, we got a comment coming in here from Daniel West, one of my good friends from sports broadcasting camp, saying if they're planning on striking in 2022, it makes sense to keep Smith around. I would bet money right now that we have another lockout by the time the CBA comes around. There is no way that they're going to come to terms on this because Goodell, if he's still around, is going to want to keep his power. The NFL, the Players Union, is not going to allow him to have any power. They want him gone. But I think we're going to have another lockout.
I'm not so sure Roger Goodell won't be willing to give up some power.
Interesting.
Because I think he has run into his fair share of mistakes and PR nightmares. He needs to look at himself in the mirror.
Does Roger Goodell, understand his own suckage? Does he really understand how bad he's been for the NFL? He almost is single-handedly
Do you think he's
ruined.
delusional enough just to...
I don't know. I mean, he's delusional enough to think that he is deserving of $40 million a year. So,
that's true. That's a good point.
All right, let's move on to our last little news and note here. Ben McAdoo, probably a smart idea.
There you go, Ben.
Might give up his play calling to offensive coordinator Mike Sullivan. I mean, I don't even know if it's a play calling issue at this point, as it is Jerry Reese, the GM of the Giants, has drafted what has been a horrific offensive line over the past couple of years. Weston Richburg is taking the turn for the worse. Justin Pugh can't do anything because he's the only person in the offensive line that's any good. Eric Flowers has been a complete unmitigated disaster at left tackle. So they just don't. I mean, I don't really think it's play calling. I think the unit as a whole is just below average. Not to mention their quarterback is also below average. I don't know. I don't think it will make a difference.
Look, yeah, I mean, the play calling is obviously a problem right now, but the entire offense is just a problem. Collectively, it's a whole deal. And I mentioned this on my show on Monday, how they could be calling for McAdoo's head if they struggle on that Monday Night Football game. What they do, they struggle. What's happening? Well, people are calling for a change.
Yeah, well, I never really understood the reason they moved on from Coughlin. I've had Giants fans tell me that, quote unquote, it was just time. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as it was just time. But
what about with Andy Reid in Philadelphia? That was just time.
Again, it was just time. I don't get it.
That's a thing.
I don't believe in that. People get fired. Andy Reid got fired because Howie Roseman's a whack job. But speaking of time, Cam, how about we talk about our presenting sponsor for today, Gametime and the Gametime app. If you're looking for some high-quality tickets from thousands of trusted sellers, you should use the Gametime app. It is the best way to get last-minute sports and concert tickets. It tracks ticket prices in real time, and you can download Gametime now and get tickets at the last minute for up to 60% off. I used it when I was in Boston to go to Fenway. I used it at Gillette as well. It's a great tool. Going to use it here when I go to AT&T Stadium eventually. Very excited.
So you're saying it's at the tip of my fingers, right? I can just grab it right with my phone.
You can just touch it and you get a ticket.
That's so easy. I love convenience. Way to go, Gametime.
You can just open up your phone, tap it, and you have a ticket. And you can just go to the game. It's amazing. I'm so excited I'm dropping my phone all over the place. All right. It is time, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for the MVP Power Rankings.
Here we go.
I know that's what everyone is here for. So without further ado, let's start at number 10, Phillip Rivers. So this might seem like a questionable thing because the Chargers are 0-2. However, I have this one more of as a statistical background because statistically, Phillip Rivers has been one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football this year by a pretty good margin.
Yeah, Phillip Rivers, it's been a rough few years for him in San Diego and now in Los Angeles, playing behind beaten and battered offensive lines, absent run games, and essentially pretty bad and injury-riddled wide receiving core. He has a really good core this year, though.
Yep.
And I think he will have a nice season, and he will hang around in these power rankings for sure, perhaps go up a few notches and get into the top 5 here. But if he continues to have that help from Melvin Gordon in the backfield, that'll open up the play action. That'll open up opportunities when those linebackers suck in and he can throw over their heads.
And also, don't forget Mike Williams, their first-round pick at 7th overall, should be back sometime in the mid of October.
And that'll only help.
I'll say this much, though. I don't know why they drafted Mike Williams. They should have drafted Reuben Foster. But that's besides the point. We're talking about Phillip Rivers. He's looked good so far. He's gotten them to a position where if they kick 2 field goals at the end, they would probably be 2-0, if not at least 1-1. But the Chargers currently sit at 0-2, Kim.
Yeah, the wins are not there right now, which might hurt his stock, but they still have an opportunity to rack up a few. So
absolutely. All right, let's move on from LA player number 1 to LA player number 2. Our number 9 guy is Todd Gurley, and Cam, I'm going to let you talk about this guy because I had him kind of a little bit lower, out like kind of the 3 after this, but you have Todd Gurley at number 9. Why?
I just think you look at the talent around Todd Gurley right now, and there's just not a lot. It's better than last year, and I was totally on the Todd Gurley bounce back campaign for 2017 in fantasy. And reality, he is a bell cow back, a young one at that, is only going to get better, so he has fresh legs. He's not an Arian Foster that's just going to break down. He's an overall running back.
Yeah.
Can catch, can block, and obviously between the tackles and around the edges, really good at that. They have bolstered the offensive line in LA now. They have Whitworth there at left tackle.
Thank God.
He is probably the best left tackle in the NFL in my eyes. Better than Trent Williams, I will say that here. So I think Todd Gurley just has the ultimate package. As a running back, he probably has the best shot to win the MVP this year.
I think we could really see him make a run for it. It kind of depends on what we see with Jared Goff, who, by the way, currently leads the NFL in completion percentage on passes over 20 yards, which last year, I know it's a weird stat, but last year he was dead last in that category. So Sean McVay in there now, you add Todd Gurley, you add some receiving weapons, you add an offensive line. I think Gurley's going. I think he's easily going to surpass 1,000 yards this year, which he did not last year. All right, let's go to number 8. We're going to slow things down a little bit now that we're trying to get into some of our, I guess, more, deeper and deeper into these power rankings. Number 8, this is a personal one. Trevor Siemian, to me,
just feels wrong, by the way.
It does. He has been, in my opinion, the most outside of Kareem Hunt, the most surprising player in the NFL this season. He has looked poised. He has looked accurate. He has looked like a leader. I am absolutely stunned from what I've seen from Trevor Siemian through the first 2 weeks of the season. He looks like a totally different quarterback.
He's really playing well, and he really had a fantastic game against the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously not the greatest secondary in the world, but 4 touchdowns, nothing to sneeze at all. And if he continues to have help from C.J. Anderson, a better offensive line, and 2, let's face it, really consistent wide receivers.
Probably the best 1-2 wide receiver combo that the NFL has had consistently in the past couple of years. Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree's up there, but I'll take Sanders and Thomas.
Yeah, Sanders and Thomas are really just magnets in terms of sticky hands grabbing that football. They're really great wide receivers.
And I think another thing about Siemian, he played okay last year, 24 TDs to 12 picks in 2016.
Serviceable.
It's serviceable. This year comes in, has to take down Paxton Lynch, their first-round pick from last year, to get the starting quarterback job. Not only did he get the starting quarterback job, it was a convincing victory. He blew Paxton Lynch away in the preseason, and right now, as a 7th-round pick, I am stunned by how well he's been played so far through the first 2 weeks of the season. He's spreading the ball well. His footwork is great. His fundamentals look so much improved than last season. I think Trevor Siemian, we're in line for a breakout season from Trevor Siemian, and possibly may never even getting to see what Paxton Lynch can do for the Broncos.
I was just going to wonder and ask you, the Paxton Lynch era, is it basically over? For any team.
Well, I'll put it this way. I thought Paxton Lynch was going to be all right. I thought he was going to be a lot of fun in the NFL. But I'll put it this way. Name a really tall quarterback that has succeeded in the NFL.
And that's a really good point, because I am I'm automatically attracted to the tall, big-armed quarterbacks. Glennon, Josh Freeman, Jamarcus Russell.
Brock Osweiler didn't work out. Lynch isn't working out.
What is
Glennon's
happening?
Huge. These guys just don't work. But there seems to be a statute of limitations towards height. For instance, Big Ben is 6'5". He's 6'6" in cleats. So maybe 6'5" is kind of as tall as you can be. Blake Bortles is almost 6'7" too. So we'll see. I don't know. Paxton Lynch still
Joe Flacco 6'7". He's getting it done.
Wait,
why is he not on this list, by the way?
Joe Flacco will not be mentioned for the rest.
He should be in 7 or something.
Speaking of Joe Flacco and the Baltimore Ravens, let's go to their bitter rivals in our first non-QB of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Antonio Brown, who is the best wide receiver in football. Him and Xavier Rhodes had an unbelievable battle last Sunday when the Vikings came into town. But week 1, 182 receiving yards against the Browns, 16 catches. Currently leads the NFL in receiving yards and targets. 100-plus catches the last 4 years. Expect more of the same this year. He's going to be a beast this year. I think he's well deserving of being on this list.
Yeah, going into the season, I actually had Julio Jones as the best wide receiver in the NFL, and I'm starting to really shift towards Antonio Brown. I just think he can run more routes than Julio Jones, especially those short crossers, better. And so I think Antonio Brown is a guy that has the best shot as wide receiver to win the MVP this year, no doubt. And if Big Ben can stay healthy, that's the key.
Yep.
Harris, if Big Ben can play 16 games, Antonio Brown's stock is going to rise rapidly.
You mentioned that route tree. I would argue that Antonio Brown has the most versatile route tree of any single player in football, and that's what makes him so dangerous. Also considering the fact that his hands are glue, he's incredibly fast, and he has an unbelievable repertoire with his quarterback. So you kind of put it all in the middle, and also he doesn't get hurt somehow. Antonio Brown has not missed the game in like 3 years.
Julio will tend to be on the injury report.
Julio's got that foot. I'm telling you, foot. Well, I don't know what it is with NFL players, feet and back. Feet injuries.
Sammy Watkins in the foot.
Sammy Watkins in the foot. Julio Jones in the foot. It's nuts. But this is actually a question that I wanted to ask our viewers that are watching right now. Ladies and gentlemen, how do you define MVP? This is a conversation I've wanted to have for a long time. Do you define an MVP as someone with the best stats, the most surprising player, the MVP to their team, or the best player on the best team? So this is a big argument in baseball because a couple of years ago, Mike Trout is always the best player, but he's on a crap team, and you will have like Miguel Cabrera or Mookie Betts or something. But in the NFL, it's tough. Like last year, it was Matt Ryan who had the best stats, whereas you could argue that Aaron Rodgers was the MVP to his team. It's a tough one to go back and forth.
I think it's a great question because it's so hard to answer. The NFL and football in general is such a team-oriented deal that where you have the NBA and baseball, MLB, in those situations, it's almost like an individual game within the game.
Right.
A bunch of individual games. In the NFL, one thing is so dependent on the other. A good quarterback sometimes can be dependent on a good run game. You have the play action, et cetera, and good wide receivers. So I think that this is a question that we certainly encourage all of you to weigh in on. If I had to say one of these right here, right now, I think it's best stats, and I would do my laughing face.
I would see. This is where it gets tough because best stats are so good, but sometimes if you're on a bad team and you're playing other bad teams, you're just going to be inflated.
Right.
For me, I kind of like going to the. It's such a homer that I think the best player on the best team is kind of the thing because usually the best player on the best team is also kind of the MVP to their team. So, for instance, Aaron Rodgers, or like for instance, let's say the Packers go 14-2 and. The Packers go 14-2. Aaron Rodgers has an amazing season. He's the best player on the team, and without Aaron Rodgers, the Packers are going nowhere. It seems that Richard Allen Harris Jr., nice last name there, best player on a top team. That's fair. I like that comment a lot because it could be a best player on a bad team. But it's just, it's tough for me because I would give Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers leads the Packers to the number one seed in the NFC, over Russell Wilson, who barely makes the wild card, who had better stats.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that if you're a top team, you certainly get a lot more attention in terms of the ratings, the national TV, flex scheduling, and all of that stuff. So it certainly helps your stock. So top teams, that's a good way to kind of think about it.
I think that's a good way to put it together. All right, speaking of best stats, let's get into a guy, our 2016 NFL MVP, who diced up the Packers on Sunday Night Football last weekend. Matt Ryan at number 6, I think, is a good place for him. He wasn't great in week 1 against the Bears. He didn't throw a lot of touchdowns against the Packers. However, he's very efficient as he was last year. He's doing a great job. But he set a lot of his career highs last season. Is regression likely for Matt Ryan this year?
Well, first of all, remember when everybody was singing the praise for Green Bay's defense after that game against Seattle? They just got a nice dose of reality against Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan, in my eyes, has the best situation around him than any other quarterback in the league.
I think that's fair.
Has the offensive line. Has one of the best, maybe top 2 best wide receivers in the league.
Yep.
You have Devontae Freeman. You have Tevin Coleman. A great 1-2 punch. The situation is there for Matt Ryan to thrive again.
Yeah.
I am usually a believer in regression to the mean.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think it's going to be right there until the very end.
I think you can see it because then you add on to all those guys. Oh, he still has Mohamed Sanu. Oh, he has Taylor Gabriel. Oh, and he still has Austin Hooper as well. And both of his backs are both great receivers out of the backfield. Like this offense is great, but one of my issues I have with this offense is the offense good because of him, or is the offense just good?
Well, that brings me back to my point earlier, the ultimate team sport kind of deal.
That's fair. That's fair.
So,
all right. we're going to get into one of our favorite segments of the week. It's a segment or a couple of segments that we always try to play for every single show for you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, these were the best plays from around the NFL from week 2. Ladies and gentlemen, boom goes the dynamite.
Well, here you go, Harris. Texans and the Bengals. Deshaun Watson is looking. He will tuck and run. This is partially just really bad defense because there are like 5 Bengals defenders who just take terrible routes, but Watson, the touchdown run, that ended up being enough for the Texans. And then J.J. Watt. You knew this one was going to be on it. He levels Russell Bodie in the center. I'm kind of surprised Russell Bodie didn't fumble that because he got lit up. J.J. Nelson, the juggling catch here. I don't really know how he had the concentration to pull this off. Look at this. He keeps it from off the grass. It's in the air, and then he reels it in.
Whoa, that's insane.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible play there by one J.J. Nelson. You knew this one could be in there, Harris. Tom Brady, off balance, fading away, finds Rob Gronkowski, who just kind of moves out of the way. Brutal tackling, and then the Gronk spike as well. Boom. A little Mike Evans here. We warned you during the Bucs-Bears this was going to make it.
Drag. Swag.
In the words of Mitchell Renz there. He got both feet in there. That right foot did touch. Touchdown Buccaneers. That was an impressive catch there from one Mike Evans. Same game here. We'll see some bra moments in this one too. You can tell by the final score. Robert McClain jumps the route. Bad throw from Mike Glennon. Josh Bellamy can't make the tackle. It's a touchdown. Or Kendall Wright cannot make the tackle. Stays in bounds. Pick 6 there for Robert McClain, the Bucs nickel corner. It is Chris Thompson time as well now. Great play there from Aaron Donald, but the little draw worked out. Chris Thompson, 3 carries, about 77 yards, and 2 scores. He races to the end zone there. If he was about 90 yards out, he might have been tackled, but he only needed 77.
Second week in a row, he's been the best running back on the team.
Titans, Jags, Marcus Mariota to Tawan Taylor, who lays out for the grab there. We'll give you another angle, full extension on the catch there. He kind of tipped it back
That's
to
a Western Kentucky boy, Hilltopper right there.
Browns, this is an interception. Duke Johnson off his hands. Eric Weddle, look at the other angle there. We'll show this to you twice. Eric Weddle tips it to himself and reels it in. Impressive play there by the former Chargers safety. One way to get in the show for sure here, as we show you this one for Duke Johnson, incredible play. He made up for the drop, kind of. He is a halfback, by the way, looking like a true receiver with that grab.
Former Miami Hurricane there making an outstanding catch, diving backwards.
You get on boom when you run the flea flicker to success. It's a minimal game, but I love the flea flicker.
I love that Marshawn Lynch blocked like almost 2 people on that play.
Look at Devontae Parker. Up and over and takes it away.
You got mossed, son.
He just took it away.
Oh, he got mossed so hard.
Devontae Parker and Jay Cutler are going to be BFFs here.
Yes,
incredible play there by Devontae Parker. C.J. Anderson pretending he's Marshawn Lynch. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Nice tackling.
And then finally knocked out of bounds by Byron Jones. Those are all good tacklers, by the way. That was Jalen Smith, Sean Lee, and Jeff Heath. And Anderson just bowling balled off him.
Jeff Heath just likes to run into people with no conscience being of himself.
Boom number 1 for Big Ben reeling in that high snap, and then Martavis Bryant with the leaping grab.
I told you, one of the best.
That was almost a disaster snap.
Yeah, really.
Big Ben bailed out at center there.
That's like one of those 6-point switch plays. That's crazy. Good
Welcome
job,
to the tight end segment of today's Boom Goes Dynamite. Case Keenum. Look at Kyle Rudolph tipping it to himself one-handed.
I like it.
We'll give you the other angle here. A nice little route here from Rudolph, who was
look how much bigger he is than every other defender on the field.
Not fair. We showed you this in the Eagles-Chiefs highlights. Carson Wentz overthrew his man, but it still worked out. Bounces into Zach Ertz's arms.
I love how confused the defender is. He's like, oh, nothing happened.
Terrence
Mitchell he has the ball.
Had a pick. Instead, it's a big game for the Eagles. And then here is Travis Kelce, the hurdle into the end zone for the score. The old shovel pass, but the celebration. He's doing the Eagle Bird dance.
Oh, he's such a
Travis Kelce talks so much trash. But the number 1 play this week, Antonio Gates sets the tight end touchdown record. Look how excited the Chargers are here. It's a dog pile in the end zone here. We'll give you another look at the play as well, but that's a defensive player in the end zone celebrating with Antonio Gates.
They're good buddies.
That's a flag. You can do that.
Antonio Gates has been running the same red zone route forever. Welcome back, everyone. We hope you enjoyed Boom Goes the Dynamite. Just a reminder that this week's MVP Power Rankings are brought to you by the Gametime app, the #1 mobile app for last-minute NFL tickets. Download Gametime now and get some tickets at the last minute from 60% off. 60%.
Procrastinators out there.
Just go on your phone. Just go on your phone. Oh, look. Hey, look. There's a game tonight. Oh, I'm just going to buy a ticket.
There you go.
Done.
Boom.
Boom. I'm gonna get off work at 6:30. I'm gonna go to a baseball game. No big deal. It's pretty cool.
Solid.
Pretty cool stuff. Go do it. Go use Game Time. But it is game time for us, Cam. It is time for our top five in our MVP power rankings. And moving up.
Now he's starting to take more shots. And so when you couple those two things, you're taking more shots down the field and you're still limiting your turnovers, that's what you call an MVP caliber quarterback. And that's what Alex Smith is doing right now. Second in the NFL in completion percentage, which is certainly very notable, even with the fact that he is taking those shots. So look, we talked about it in the early going of the NFL season and before week 1 or a little after that Thursday night opener. He's taking more shots because there's a little fire under his butt right now. I mean, look at the facts. He's not going to be with Kansas City next year. We know that. And he's kind of trying out for that next team.
Well, the issue with Alex Smith, though, is that he is the master of the West Coast offense. But he can't really do much else besides that. I mean, his completion percentage is always going to be high. He's not going to turn the ball over. But they're not going to take a ton of deep shots down the field. I mean, I know they did against the Patriots, but if you look at a season as a whole, I still think the Chiefs will be around where they were last year. But you can't hate on the fact that Alex Smith, so far through the first 2 weeks of the season, has looked like a Pro Bowl quarterback.
And as we kind of transition from Alex Smith to the snubs, perhaps, in our reaction poll here, Harris, which of the 4 dropped from last week will be on our list next week? We have Big Ben, Zeke Elliott, Le'Veon Bell, Cam Newton. Zeke Elliott, by the way, one of the worst performances we've ever seen from him in week 2.
He will not be on our list next week, probably just out of principle and principle alone. Ezekiel Elliott last week very clearly, and I said this on the NFL Recap show, and I will stand by it. Ezekiel Elliott very much quit on the Dallas Cowboys in their game against the Broncos.
Hey, Skip Bayless said he did not.
I don't care what Skip Bayless has to say. Skip Bayless just says things and says them. I'm telling you, Ezekiel Elliott is not going to be on this list next week. I think it's going to be Le'Veon Bell. I think he got to a little bit of a slow start in week 1. He looked much better in week 2, almost 100 yards on 27 carries. I think week 3 he's going to break out in a big way.
So, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to weigh in. Heart for Big Ben, wow face for Elliott, laughing face for Le'Veon Bell, and an angry face for Cam Newton. And I think the most concerning name here will probably be Cam Newton. You mentioned the whole shoulder deal. It might not come back to normal.
For people who didn't watch our show on Monday when I was on and I was talking about Cam Newton's shoulder, the shoulder surgery that he had and what Andrew Luck is currently going through, you're basically getting a brand new shoulder, which how the surgery goes. So he basically has to learn how to throw with a brand new shoulder, but the difference is that sometimes that magic is just gone. Sometimes you don't acclimate quick enough, and it takes a season and a half, 2 seasons, and by the time that you've gotten it back, you've lost so much that you just can't come back from it. Ruined Rich Gannon's career.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with Cam Newton. If I was a Panthers fan, I would be very, 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 very concerned about Cam Newton, and I will continue to be concerned throughout this entire season.
Speaking of Rich Gannon, how about another Raiders quarterback?
All right, let's move into it. I like the transition. This is the season, regardless of who they've been playing. The offense looks great. It looks completely in sync. The running game is back. The offensive line is the best in football. The Raiders are cruising.
Harris, I cannot say this enough. In the NFL, where the offensive line play is absolutely putrid, it is candy to my eyes to watch those road graders and those stonewallers do their thing up front and keep that pocket clean for Derek Carr. That's why he has been playing so well in this campaign and also in 2016. And he's going to continue to be up there in the MVP rankings in my eyes. And he's coming off a great week.
Just those middle three. You know, you talk about Rodney Hudson at center, and then the two guards, Kelechi Osemele, former Raven, and then Gabe Jackson, a Raider for life as of now. Derek Carr, again, the yardage for me has been a little bit concerning, but his efficiency has been up. Third in the NFL in passing touchdowns, 3 TDs last week against the Jets. Last year, we saw him set a career high in touchdown interception ratio, 28 touchdowns and 6 picks. I think we're going to see something very similar this year. The offense that he's in allows him to be very safe while also taking shots down the field, not to mention another year of Amari Cooper, another year of Michael Crabtree. You add Jared Cook. This is an offense primed to be one of the 5 best in football, helmed by one Derek Carr.
I'm very excited to see how they improve going forward, too.
Me too. All right, moving on from Derek Carr to our number 3 on our MVP power rankings. We have the former MVP, Aaron Rodgers, who, while he did not look as good as people would have thought against the Atlanta Falcons, he still was able to get the job done. 33 of 50 for 343, 2 TDs, and a touchdown. He's currently second in the NFL in passing yards. And another reason we have him on this list, Cam, he is playing the Cincinnati Bengals
on to
this
Cincinnati.
week, and he is going to roast the Cincinnati Bengals. I claimed at the start of this year that Aaron Rodgers was going to be on the warpath, and the warpath goes to Cincinnati this week.
So one anonymous source, one NFL executive said the only way to fix Cincinnati right now, fire sale already.
Yeah, get him out.
So that means Aaron Rodgers is going to have a pretty good week this week, I think.
No, 100%.
Because things are crumbling in the Bengals camp
We
right now.
might be seeing the last few weeks of Andy Dalton's Bengals career. If Andy Dalton does not get back up to par, I mean, look, they've kept, and for the same reason that the Patriots have kept Jimmy Garoppolo around for a long time, the Bengals have kept A.J. McCarron around for a reason. I don't think he's very good, but they certainly do, and there's a reason why he's still on this football team.
And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to continue to pile on the numbers. He is like one of 3 quarterbacks who can throw the ball 50 to 60 times and win a game on his back.
There are only two quarterbacks in the NFL I think that can do it. I think it's only Brady and Rodgers. I really don't think if there's another quarterback that you want throwing the ball that many times.
You could squeak in Big Ben, I think.
Yes, Big Ben if Antonio Brown is having one of his days and Martavis Bryant's getting open. Yes, I'll give you Big Ben as a 0.5. So 2.5 quarterbacks can throw 50 times. But Aaron Rodgers, I think, will be just fine for the rest of this season.
By the way, am I seeing this right? We have 2 Chiefs in the top 10.
We do have 2 Chiefs in the top 10.
What's going on here?
So speaking of our second Chief, let's move into our number 2. Kareem Hunt has been the best offensive player, I think, in football so far through 2 weeks of the season. The only reason he's not number 1 is because he is a running back, but this is a man who has proved that he can play at the NFL level. His balance is unreal. His speed is unreal. He has a great motor. He can run between the tackles. He can catch the ball on screens. He can do everything you want as a modern-day running back. He has been a stud, and he is number 1 in the NFL in rushing yards going into week 3.
Well, you have to feel for Spencer Ware, no doubt about it. But his injury paved the way for Kareem Hunt to really be a featured running back in this offense and really get him some good touches in his early going of his career, and it's really paying off. I mean, look at week 2 stats, 103 combined yards, 2 touchdowns, played a great game against New England in that opener as well. I mentioned that Todd Gurley has the best shot at winning the MVP from the running back position, but you have to make Hunt the favorite to win the Rookie of the Year.
Yes, for sure. And we want to hear from you guys. Drop us some comments. Will a non-QB win the MVP this year? We have a lot of big-time quarterbacks, but I think that as we go along, I think running backs this year are going to play a massive, massive part of any success in the NFL. The Patriots have their all crazy running back, million running backs by committee, but the rest of the NFL, I think you'll still see Le'Veon Bell come around. Zeke will come around. David Johnson, unfortunately, got injured, so no David Johnson this year. But drop us a comment. We want to know, will a non-QB win the MVP this year? Cam, will a non-QB win the MVP this year?
I don't think they will. Look, Todd Gurley, unless he absolutely explodes, but I don't think he will catch the eye of a lot of the voters, at least this year. With the quarterback play of Tom Brady still very high, and Derek Carr with his situation, Matt Ryan going to be right there as well. It's going to be a quarterback.
Yep.
Not sure which one, but I believe it's going to be a signal caller.
I believe it's going to be a signal caller. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to our number one guy in our MVP power rankings. You can call me biased, you can call me all you want, but when you're 40 years old to throw for 450 yards in a single game, you end up on number one in our power rankings. Tom Brady made the Saints look like ain'ts, and he is number one in our power rankings. 3 TDs, 30 of 39 for 447 yards, 300 of which came in the first half.
I won't call you a homer because it's very realistic that Tom Brady is the favorite to win the MVP. The guy is over 40 years old, and he's still getting it done. And he waltzes into New Orleans and absolutely shreds apart that secondary. Look at the yardage total, folks. 447 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he's fresh off a Super Bowl MVP. Tom Brady is only going to be better this year compared to week one. I mean, he wasn't very good in week one. He's only going to get better. And I really like his chances this year. I think the running back situation is right there for him to kind of feed off of and get some good passes down the field with single coverage on the outside. Tom Brady, your guy to watch.
And before we talk about game time, mind you, one last stat. There is one point in that game where Tom Brady had one single healthy wide receiver on the field. Philip Dorsett was out with an injury. Chris Hogan was out with an injury. Rob Gronkowski was out with an injury. Dwayne Allen was not in the game. It was literally Brandon Cooks and a bunch of running backs, and they still won by almost 20 points. Outrageous. But ladies and gentlemen, a reminder that this whole segment is brought to you by Game Time. If you're looking for tickets at the last minute, and you can get them up to 60% off, go to chatsports.com/tickets to download the Game Time app, or just go on the App Store or on the Google Play Store and find the Game Time app. They track the best deals from thousands of trusted sellers. Download Game Time now and get tickets for up to 60% off.
You can't beat that. 60%.
No, not at all. All right, Cam, we are going to move through our power rankings one more time to give a little summary for the people at home. So let's start with number 10, Phillip Rivers, the quarterback for the Chargers. 0-2 team, but he is putting up some pretty impressive stats.
Yeah, I mean, Phillip Rivers is like the epitome of, all right, put it on my back and I'll do what I can, throwing 40-plus times a game. Yep. I mean, the amount of stress on this guy is so high, or at least it's been very high the last few years, and he's a gamer, and he's not complaining too much or anything like that. He's just doing his thing, playing his game, and that's why he's at 10.
Mind you that Phillip Rivers has lost 10 of his last 11 games by under 7 points.
Yeah, so he's not a closer.
Not a closer, yes. All right, number 9, we got Todd Gurley, the running back for the Rams, one of only three non-QBs on this roster, or on this list, excuse me. Todd Gurley has been playing well so far this year, and I think we can expect a big season out of him.
Yeah, you know my feelings on him. I think he's one of the premier all-around backs in the NFL right now, and he will win an MVP. It may not be this year, but he will.
All right, I like the prediction. All right, moving on to number 8, we have Trevor Siemian, the quarterback for the Broncos. Kind of weird to see him on this list. I don't think anyone would have pegged him 2 weeks in to be on this list. However, he looked great against the Cowboys, and he looked great in week 1 as well. I think he deserves to be here.
Yeah, he does. I mean, it just feels weird. You're right. I guess I just have to get used to it here. But Trevor Siemian coming off a really nice game, as you mentioned, against Dallas. And can he carry that success going forward? Can he continue that momentum? That's going to be the key.
We will see. All right, moving on to number 7, we have another non-QB. We have Antonio Brown, who has been the best wide receiver in football through 2 games so far, the most yards and targets in the NFL. He's the best wide receiver in the NFL for my money. I take him on my team any day over anyone else.
Yeah, he is a legit wide receiver in every sense of the word, and he should be a model for all young wide receivers out there to follow because he is really a talented guy. He makes Big Ben better.
6th-round pick.
Unbelievable.
Turn to the best wide receiver in football. Truly a great story. Moving on to number 6, not a 6th-round pick, actually a former 2nd or 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft. Matt Ryan, the quarterback for the Falcons, maybe doesn't have the total statistics that you want to see through 2 weeks. However, the former MVP has looked quite efficient.
Like I said, the situation is there for him to repeat again. That nucleus is in place in Atlanta. By the way, same draft class as Joe Flacco. Had to sneak that in.
Had to sneak that in. All right, moving on to number 5, we have Alex Smith, the classically efficient quarterback, the master of the West Coast offense, has looked great through 2 weeks. No turnovers for him. His Chiefs are 2-0 and probably the number 1 team in the NFL.
Efficient, and he is basically captaining the best team in the NFL in terms of resume wins so far.
So far, so good. All right. Moving on to number 4, we have Derek Carr, the quarterback of the Raiders. Yardage total a little bit low, touchdown numbers are not low. He has looked great at the helm of what should be one of the best offenses in football this season.
Just like Matt Ryan, really great situation over there in Oakland for Derek Carr, and it's only going to get better.
Absolutely. Moving on to number 3, speaking of situations that are only going to get better, Aaron Rodgers takes on the Bengals this week as the Warpath heads back. I believe they're playing in Green Bay as well.
In Green Bay.
The
lowly Bengals are going to travel up.
The Warpath heads home. Aaron Rodgers, number 3. He looked a little rough against the Falcons. I'm going to blame that on the fact that he didn't have either of his 2 starting tackles in that game.
There's going to be 2 ejections from the Bengals in this game. I just know it. Rodgers is going to shred them apart. They're going to get frustrated on defense, and there'll be 2 ejections.
I like it. Moving on to number 2, we have Kareem Hunt, the running back for the Chiefs, who I think we can all agree has been the best offensive player in football through 2 weeks. The only reason he is number 2 is because, non-running backs rarely win, non-QBs rarely win MVPs. He's looked great. 3rd rounder out of Toledo. He's looked like an absolute star.
It seems like Kansas City has a great job of finding electric players.
Yes.
Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt, one of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on to number 1, Tom Brady is our top QB, and I don't think that's a big surprise after what he did to the Aints on Sunday.
Absolute shred job.
450 yards, 3 touchdowns, 30 of 39 for the 40-year-old. Only the second time a 40-year-old has ever thrown for 400 yards in a game.
You could argue that opening night loss was like the best thing that could happen to the Patriots and Tom Brady.
It was a wake-up call for sure. All right. Moving on to one more time, a little bit of summary here. Number 10, Phillip Rivers. Number 9, Todd Gurley. Number 8, Trevor Siemian. Number 7, Antonio Brown. Number 6, Matt Ryan. And then our top 5, Alex Smith, Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, and Kareem Hunt. So we want to hear from you guys. Please drop us a comment. Who do you think was snubbed from this week's MVP power rankings? Anyone in particular you want to see on this list? And I swear to God, if you say Joe Flacco, I'm going to hit you.
Honestly, I think Joe should be considered.
I will threaten physical violence on a Facebook Live show.
Come on. All right, no, look, I think Ben Roethlisberger, perhaps, if he really throws up some better numbers on the road this year and continues the success that he's had at home, he could be in the conversation. He probably sticks out to me the most.
Got a comment coming in here from Tyler James Davis. How is Tom Brady number 1? One game he was good, one game he was awful, trash. Tom Brady is number 1 because he probably put up the best offensive performance of any player through 2 weeks of the NFL season besides Kareem Hunt in week 1, which is why we have them 1 and 2. However, like we said, number 1, number 2, it's very difficult for a non-QB to win the MVP. So Brady gets number 1 for having probably the best quarterback performance in 2 weeks so far.
And by the way, some eventual MVPs have rough games.
Yes.
1 or 2.
Yes, it's in there. All right, we got another comment here from Brandon Nichols saying Stafford all day.
Interesting.
I also think that Matt Stafford.
In terms of money, yes.
Matt Stafford, I also believe, should be on this list. However, his total stats are a little bit low for me, despite a 2-0 Lions team. I think he's had a little bit too few of passing yards so far. And then
I love this comment. Richard, my man, Flacco. Love it.
Tells us that Flacco should be on the list.
Big arm,
Flacco
tall.
should be on no list unless it is a list of players who are not elite.
That's my quarterback, Joe. You're my quarterback, buddy.
This is so bad. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us. I'm Harris Rubenstein. This is Cam Rogers. We've had a great time for you today. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Sportscene and at Mr. Rogers99. And don't forget to like this page so you can get notified whenever we go live, which, by the way, is every day at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Cam?
By the way, Harris, if I'm on the go, I can download the podcast, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Go find us on iTunes and on Google Play. And also, go find the Cam Rogers podcast on the same places as well. We'll see you guys tomorrow for another edition of NFL Daily. But for now, see ya.